My name is Ala Mulugeta, and this is for my scientific communications class. And I hope you guys enjoy. So, what are Mycteria americana? So, even though I know a lot of you may know what certain species this is, the Mycteria americana is also known as the wood stork. So, the wood stork is a species that became endangered in the year 2012. The stork is an ibis that lives in humid and wet areas across America. So, even though they live in different parts of the United States, we have collected data later on in the experiment that is specifically in Texas. This is in the southern region of Texas, which makes a lot of sense because we have plenty of wood storks in this state, and there are plenty of wet and warm areas that these birds were able to live in. So, what has happened to the major population? This was a question that many of scientists and researchers had at the time, and even just people who lived within the community that were actually getting quite worried that the endangered species may become depleted. So, over the past 5 years, the number of sightings of these birds has increased drastically. The data in which we have utilized began to be collected in 2018, and we stopped collecting it in 2022. So we recently have just wrapped up this experiment. The objective of the experiment was to collectively estimate the presence of wood storks in the US. Even though the data was only collected in Texas, it definitely makes sense as to why we wanted to get a grand scale as to why the wood storks were becoming less and less and less in number and population. The introduction of various species, such as those that belong to the snake family, um, have been a direct cause as to why the species, which is the wood stork, has decreased in numbers over the years. So, snakes are wood stork's number one predator, and snakes, specifically in wet areas, are more poisonous than those that live on dry areas, at least in the state of Texas. And so this was very important to note because over time, whenever multiple scientists tried to get a consensus of how many wood storks existed in the area, they were able to locate plenty of snakes that were predatory to the wood ibis. And this was one of the determining factors as to what exactly has happened to them. Even though it isn't the only cause, it is definitely one of the bigger ones. Multiple causes as to why this has happened has been linked to pollution and also human intervention. Um, this is so because the water snakes pose a threat to the population of the bird as they are predatory to the wood stork. So this is the data showing the decrease. Excuse this little drawing here. I wanted to make sure that I drew a chart here. You can see that in 2018, the number of observations were 88, and if we just jump to the year of 2022, the number of observations were 141. So even though there was a decrease between the year 2018 and 2019, the number of observations were still significantly high, and they had only decreased less than 20 in observations. So that was still a very good sign. There was a little bit of a stagnation between 2018 and 2020, as the difference in observations from 2018 and 2020 was only that of 3. It began to rise in the years that follow. So this poses a question as to why exactly did the number of observations skyrocket to 50 more observations in the year 2021? Many scientists have equated this to the fact that we have had a global pandemic. The global pandemic has affected every single person in this world, more or less. And so plenty of people were having to stay indoors because they didn't want to get sick. This was something that was very, very important for scientists to notate because the fact that there wasn't human intervention that caused more pollution over time was something that was a highlight when finding out the root cause as to what exactly had happened to the wood storks. Now, even though none of this is able to be 100% tested, you're able to draw conclusions as to what exactly happened to the wood stork. And if you look here with the graphs, you're able to see the increase and the decrease over the years 2018 and 2020. So the final results, the number of observations of the organism Myceteria americana has increased from 90 in 2018 to 149 in 2022. So as discussed, it was a huge increase. And that was something that scientists and researchers were taking pride in because that meant that we were actually getting somewhere.